Are high in Uvalde, Texas, after the early and unexpected release of video from inside Robb Elementary showing law enforcement waiting in the school's hallway as teachers and students were murdered. The video, which was obtained, edited, and released by the Austin American-Statesman and KVUE, is hard to watch. It's also emotional and it's maddening as well. The edited video begins with a panicked 911 call from a teacher.
He's shooting. I haven't made anything for him to come. The kids are running.
The video then goes back to the shooter walking inside the school carrying a weapon. A child emerges into the hallway behind him and runs away just as the gunman opens fire into a classroom. Jeez. Within minutes, members of law enforcement run into the school toward the classroom. They're fired on.
Not only are they fired upon, but you'll look at this individual right here that's standing there. I don't know if he's a teacher or principal or another police officer, but he's basically hiding in behind the wall here. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful that the American people pay, I think, pretty decent money for people to protect us. And then whenever we call upon them to protect us, something like this happens pertaining to dereliction of duty. People running and saving their own hides versus trying to save our children's hides. If something like this was to happen somewhere either around the Civil War or shortly after the Civil War, these people that is engaged in doing this, they wouldn't just be staying the rest of their life with a dishonorable discharge like you get in the military if you decide to go, basically treading towards the enemy, or even, I guess in some incidences, going AWOL towards becoming cowardly and running. But you would probably actually, instead of getting a bad mark towards being dishonorable discharge, you would probably actually, if this was to have occurred back years and years ago, they would have probably taken you and hanged you up by a highest tree or put you against the wall and shot you. And the reason why I say that is because a centurion Roman soldier in Rome 2,000 years ago, if they was caught even as much as sleeping on their post during their duty, they was executed. They was put to their death.
More officers arrive armed with weapons and ballistic shields. They fill the hallway, but instead of acting, instead of engaging the gunman, instead of going into that classroom, they wait. At one point, somebody gets hand sanitizer and cleans his hands. The video you just saw was supposed to be shown to the families of victims on Sunday, shown to them first. Instead, those families are now not only reeling from the content of that video, but also reeling because they saw it a lot sooner and in public, much sooner than they expected.
I don't know why they just didn't go in there. I just don't know why.
It was the worst thing that I could possibly see. Joining me now from Uvalde is NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton. Antonia.
So not only was it mishandled from the front end, but now it's pretty apparent that it's being mishandled during the process, during the middle end. My God, what have we turned into?
Hi, Katie. There is so much hurt and anger here. Last night at a city council meeting, it really spilled over because people were grappling with the release of this new surveillance footage. And, it's kind of a push and pull here. Some people, their rage is focused on law enforcement and what they see happen in this video. You mentioned an officer reaching for hand sanitizer. At another point, an officer checks his cell phone. And then for some folks, there's so much anger at at the reporters who published this footage. And that's because, as you mentioned, they expected to see this on Sunday morning at a meeting with officials here in the state of Texas. And many of the relatives, they started to get texts and calls saying, don't look at Facebook, don't look at Twitter, don't turn on the news. This is all out there. And on the one hand, they've been pushing for this transparency. They wanted this video out. But on the other hand, it's very hard to suddenly find out that a video that shows aspects of your child's last few minutes of their life is out there for the entire world to see and to dissect. And so people are really struggling with those emotions here right now. Take a listen to a conversation that I had with one local pastor who lives here in Uvalde and has been meeting with the families.
It's almost like it's turned into a circus. It really has. And whenever it comes to people's dignity and shame, I don't even know where to begin with this. It's so out of the norm of what we would consider norm. I don't even know where to go with this, other than it being disgraceful and shameful. I feel so sorry for the victims and those that was victimized by this freaking idiot that decided to go in there with a gun and do this. I feel so sorry for the parents and the foster parents and the people associated with this whole ordeal. I just feel it puts a sickening feeling in my stomach.
It confirmed to me personally, it confirmed to me that these police officers, every single one of them, cowards. They had all their body armor, yet on the other side of the wall, you can hear the gunshots. There's children, there's two beautiful teachers getting killed. And these guys did absolutely nothing.
They're trying to protect themselves.
That's why I asked the mayor last night, what's the cover up, Mr. Mayor? What's the cover up? Why did he say, if I talk, I go to jail? What are they covering up? That they didn't do nothing? Well, everybody knows that. 19 innocent children, 19 crosses with the two teachers.
The pastor was really struck by that moment where we saw an officer reach for hand sanitizer and wash his hands. People here in the community see that as almost metaphorical for some of the behavior from law enforcement, like they've washed their hands of this, that people haven't come forward and really taken full accountability for what's happened in this community. NBC News is out for comment from law enforcement officials, but over the last several weeks, they've consistently defended themselves. Chief Arredondo, who's been at the center of this controversy, described, fighting for keys to find the right one to get into the classroom and finally confront the gunman. Officials described the police officers initially as having, shown a lot of bravery, as having put themselves in the line of fire. But now we look at this surveillance footage, Katie, and of course that is not what we really see here. We do not see people putting themselves in the line of fire. Over an hour goes by, and it's really hard, even for our team that's been covering this for weeks, to make sense of what we see in all of this, Katie.
Antonia Hilton. Antonia, thank you very much. I know it's very difficult to be there. Joining me now is Zach Despard, politics reporter for the Texas Tribune. In picking up where Antonia left off there, remember in the day after the shooting, that big news conference that the mayor...
If this is the best that we can do for our children pertaining to protecting our future, I'm going to tell you something, folks. We're in trouble. We're in big trouble whenever the people that we have hired to put in place to protect us and to protect our children, to protect our interest, whenever they perform this way for 77 minutes before they finally get enough courage to go in there and do what they should have done within the first 5 minutes, that within that time frame, God only knows how many more children died. If this is the best that we can do, we're in trouble. We're in trouble as a community. We're in trouble as a state. We're in trouble as a nation. We're in trouble. Because I promise you, the men that my father directed during World War II towards being a drill sergeant, if they would have seen some type of performances on the level that what we just seen, they would have walked away with a dishonorable discharge. They never would have been able to have gotten a job. They would have been socially degraded, smeared, to the point that I don't even know that they could have survived in America after the United States military marked them up the way that they should have been marked up. So this to me is just beyond words. It really is.
With law enforcement officers and officials, where they were all in that theater stage and they patted each other on the back and said, if not for the good action of officers, the brave action of officers, that so many more kids would have died that day, as if 20 kids, 19 kids, wasn't enough as it wasn't already a terrible thing. Seeing this video, I in the position I'm in, all the way here in New York, I struggle to watch it without feeling a lot of pain. What is it like out there? What is it like for the families?
It is pretty horrific, Katie. Our team at the Texas Tribune had reviewed this video about a month ago. We were able to get a hold of it.
It's treachery. It's mere treachery. It would be the same thing if we was fighting a war and all of a sudden the people that we hired to take care of us, protect us, defend us, turned against us. It'd be the same thing. I mean, if you're not going to do your job, get out of the way so somebody else can. The things that has happened in the past 30 plus years in America has been absolutely appalling. Appalling. And who was it that did come to their defense at the beginning? The governor of the state of Texas. The governor of the state of Texas come to their defense that their law enforcement was doing well until we got to investigating and finding out that here was a fund set up for mental health, that it had been squandered. Here was something else that was set up. It had been eliminated. I mean, where are we going to go with this? Where are we going to go with not only this, but where are we going to go whenever a group of people decides to take over a whole section of a city up in Portland, Oregon, and hold that 8-block city by using some sort of a fancy word? I think, if I'm not mistaken, for about 2 months before finally the National Guard was called in on top of them towards eliminating that situation. Where are we going to go with this? There's going to have to be some sort of accountability issues whenever it comes to this type of madness and this type of irresponsibility towards accountability issues towards people not wanting to take accountability actions for their actions. And my suggestion would be that if you don't want to be a police officer, if you don't want to be a law enforcement officer, if you don't want to be a detective or somebody associated with law, after you make your sworn oath, promises, or duties pertaining to that, then you don't need to go and try to get a job. I realized that those officers was going to take a high risk in possibly either becoming injured or possibly even become deceased themselves. I realize that. But at the expense of watching other children to die, why they themselves had guns, why they themselves had all kinds of assault tactic, artillery and body armor.
Thing that happened in it.
We're having some issues with Zach's connection. It's freezing up. Can we reestablish with him, folks? It sounds like they got a...
People wonder how come depression is high in America. Because people feeling drugged and out, defeated, and there is no future. Whenever we see stuff like this on TV again and again and again, regardless whether it's something related around children or in some other incidences, kind of like where even our United States military did not intervene pertaining to the 2 airplanes that had obviously went loco in attacking the Twin Towers, much less the Pentagon and the other airline. Whenever we see this type of inappropriate behavior towards defending our well-being, it kind of makes you wonder, it kind of makes you scratch your head. How inadequate can our civil defense be whenever it comes to taking care of their own citizen? I mean, I realize that probably to some degree, maybe people's been a little bit liberal whenever it comes to people hacking into other people's accounts and stealing their identity and getting into their bank accounts because it's a new frontier. But even at that, it still should not be excused towards protecting us during the time that we need protection. But to watch something like this happen right in front of your very eyes, and to think that this is the best that we can do for our children, for our future, it's just absolutely asinizing.
Hold of that video about a month ago, I would have liked to hear about the reasoning they had for not releasing it before the families saw it. If we get it back up, we'll go right back to Zach. But in the meantime, let's go to Washington, D.C. Families from Uvalde, Texas, join families from Highland Park, Illinois, in our nation's capital today, Washington, D.C., to demand more action to address gun violence. They marched for a common cause, calling for a national ban on those weapons that have killed so many Americans, especially recently. Joining me now from Washington, D.C. is NBC's Maura Barrett, a national ban on assault weapons. Maura, it's quiet there. It's very hot there today. What did you see from that march?
Yeah, Katie, over the last couple of hours, we saw a group of several hundred people forming the group of March 4th, is what they call themselves. 4th as in July 4th. They formed just a week and a half ago after the mass shooting in Highland Park, Texas. And they came here to Washington, D.C. to have meetings with lawmakers and also march on the Capitol, as we saw earlier today. Like you said, a very hot day, but they spoke here initially. We heard from people that were at the Highland Park shooting. I spoke with a mother who brought her 2 kids to the parade, ready to celebrate America. And then, as she described it to me, on a moment's notice, they were running for their lives. She lost track of one of her kids and her husband, and she spoke about the fear that they felt in an America. She said that this is acceptable. This is something that people are allowed to do, and that's why we hear them calling for the federal ban on assault weapons, because as one other mother put it to me, this isn't about taking away Second Amendment rights. The woman I spoke with, Kitty, who organized this march, said that she believes in the Second Amendment, but this is to make sure that murderous weapons, as she puts it, are not in civilians' hands. And so they marched on to the Capitol chanting, "Enough is enough." And as we were walking back, coming back from the march with them, I met a young boy, 10-year-old Jaden. He is a survivor of the Uvalde shooting. He was a student in Robb Elementary, and he watched his teacher get shot and killed, and he watched some of his friends die as well. I asked him why he wanted to be here today. Take a listen to our conversation.
So no one has to go through what I've gone through at school. I was in the Robb school shootout when Miss Garcia misread us.
How did you feel when that happened?
I felt sad because most of my friends passed away.
Incredibly brave to hear this from this 10-year-old little boy who experienced this and who is now asking lawmakers to make a change. I asked him what he wants people in power to do, and he said, I want people to make us feel safe. I want people to have to stick with their families so nothing bad can happen to them. Because, Katie, in the mind of a child, being around grown-ups is what makes you safe. But as we saw in that video in Uvalde, those grown-ups did not from what we can see, protect those kids, right? And so when we're talking about something we heard at the rally earlier today, Senator Duckworth pointing out that good guys with guns, as she says, does not protect from bad guys with guns. And so that's why we see the group here today calling for that ban on assault weapons federally. Katie.
And I agree with you 100%. I agree 100%. Because if the good people that's got the guns still don't adequately do their jobs, then we're still left defenseless towards having to defend for ourselves. I've never seen it like this before. I really haven't. And you know, I've spoke up again and again and again, and I still speak up against what went on January the 6th pertaining to the rioting. But you know, we're getting closer and closer and closer in the degree or in the magnitude that maybe it is time for a new militia to stand up in America to take control over the things that obviously our officials can't take control over. And I hate to say that because you're really scratching the bottom of the barrel whenever you have to relate to something like that. But even in our Constitution tells us that once we have identified that there is a problem with our government towards not adequately sufficiently sufficing the needs of the people, then the people has a right to go up against that entity that is no longer functioning the way that it should be functioning to protect and provide a safe environment for its citizenship. And as far as I'm concerned, there is so many people that needs to walk away immediately from their jobs. They need to resign. And I realize, well, there's a lot on the line because they've been working there for years and years and years, and they're waiting on their retirement, and they're waiting on this. Well, they may be. But at the same time, we got innocent lives that's dying. Just like what went on, I mean, with a maniac that took up a military-style gun that basically killed a bunch of people on the 4th of July like he was pigeon shooting, like the same thing that happened in Las Vegas. I mean, when are we going to say enough is enough in trying to approach this on a civilized tone, in the degree that maybe it is time to take up arms? Maybe it is time to go up against the people that has been in power for years and years and years, that has allowed this to get out of the shape that it's in. Just as of yesterday, I want to make mention of this. Just as of yesterday, I'm gonna be bragging a little bit about the police here in Weakley County in Martin, Tennessee. But I walked out of the Hart restaurant, which, you know, since COVID, like everybody else, everything has slowed down. I don't go to the Hart restaurant near as much as I used to in Martin, Tennessee. But yesterday, I felt inclined of going. And whenever I was walking out, I sensed fear immediately. And it was almost like a cloud of smoke. I'm going to use the word smoke for an analogy here, metaphorically. But it was almost like a cloud of smoke hit me as soon as I walked out of the restaurant. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa, what is this? And I didn't see nothing at that time, and I didn't understand nothing at that time, but I felt something at that time. So I put on my radar. I look to my right. I see an individual that's sitting in a parking lot, driving, looks like a brand new truck, sitting there with his window down, and he was facing category across the road. So naturally, my eyes left him and then went across the road, and I realized that there was a shakedown that was going on. It looked to be at least maybe 5 or 6 officers. It was an older hotel. Looked like it was a lot of Mexicans in that hotel. I don't know if they was doing a shakedown because of the green card policy, or maybe they thought that there was a large quantity of drugs or whatever in that particular hotel. But I thought to myself, as I observed that situation and I looked at it, I thought to myself, well, you know what? Now that's the way it's supposed to be done. They're going in there without any fear, knowing that there's still risk involved, but they're taking care of business. They're doing what they have been hired to do, especially under the pretense if they think that some sort of criminal crime is being promoted or displayed in the sight of the public domain. And it really don't matter if it's public domain or not. I mean, if you find out that people are doing stuff that's illegal, it needs to be stopped. It doesn't matter if it's down in a hole somewhere, living in a cave. If they're doing something illegal and they need to be stopped, well, then they need to be stopped. I guarantee you, the people that was after the Jesse James gang, whenever they was hiding out in caves and stuff, they didn't let it bother them, not one bit, whenever they was going after the outlaws towards looking for them in the dark, hidden, cold, wet places. So it ain't just necessarily about public policy as far as safety to the public, but it's about people that are lawbreakers, that are breaking the law, that obviously need to be stopped or caught or punished. So yesterday, whenever I walked out of the restaurant, I realized, wow, they're on top of their game here. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're after somebody. Now, like I said, I don't know. It may have been in the paper this morning pertaining to what went on, if anything went on. It may have been a dead run. Sometimes they, do a shakedown and they was given the wrong information and it turns out to be a dud. But I'm pretty sure that the person that was watching was kind of like a supervisor. He was supervising the whole event, making sure that the police officers was doing their jobs and making sure that everything was being handled appropriately and properly. And that's the way it's supposed to be done on a shakedown. Especially whenever you got like 4 or 5 officers that's having to go to the same facility. Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be done. May have been somebody in there that had a warrant for their arrest or something. I don't know. Have no idea what it was. The fact of the matter is, they was doing their jobs.
Maura Barrett. Maura, thank you very much. And back with us is Zach Despard, politics reporter, again, for the Texas Tribune. Zach, you were saying that you guys got a hold of this video a month ago. Why didn't you release it?
We didn't have a copy of it to release publicly. That was the agreement of the source we got it from. I did want to underscore that it is a horrible thing to watch, and I caution people that they don't have to watch it. You can read the stories we've written, others have written that describe exactly what happens in it. What I did want to underscore based on what we had seen and what we had reported is we have done, and many others have done, a lot of reporting about the local police, the local police chief, Pete Arredondo, and the mistakes that they made and he made as incident commander and not being aggressive, decisive, and ending this shooting. What you see in the video is so many different law enforcement agencies, state, federal, that also respond to this scene and also are not decisive in ending it. So a lot of the focus of our reporting going forward of the legislative committees here in Texas investigating this is, okay, what about those other law enforcement agencies, including the state police, the Border Patrol, where
exactly.
well-resourced, well-equipped ones who responded? What is their reasoning for not acting more decisively to end the shooting any sooner than the 77 minutes it took?
Exactly. Whenever you got 4 or 5 different agencies there, you'd have thought somebody would have picked up and run with it towards, my God, we gotta have to save these freaking children. We're gonna have to save these families' children here. But nobody mustered up enough strength or enough courage to do that. I guess they sat around debating on whether or not he was going to run out of bullets. It is so sad. If this is the best that we can do for ourselves, in watching the video of how the officers basically just pranced around nervously and like she said a while ago, one of them got some hand sanitizer and just, if this is the best that we can do, folks, we're in trouble as a nation. We're in trouble as a nation towards protecting ourselves, much less hiring people to protect our children. We're in trouble.
Any talk right now about accountability for these officers? Any talk about an investigation leading to charges, either civil or criminal?
there's not talk about civil or criminal charges, really, certainly about how to reform going forward. The school district has placed Chief Arredondo on leave. I'm not sure if he'll ever return to working there again. There are questions for, how do we reform the way we do things to make this not happen again, because clearly this is not a unique incident about one officer who did not do the right thing according to the police tactics experts we spoke to. It was a breakdown on many, many different levels, and unfortunately there is a risk that this could happen again.
So what about the gun talk in Texas? Again, Amara was just saying it's one of Ted Cruz's arguments. Good guy with the gun stops a bad guy with the gun. These were many good guys with many high-powered guns and body armor and shields, and they didn't stop this one crazy kid. Is anybody even broaching that conversation in Texas right now?
I mean, if you're asking about legislative solutions like gun control, not really. That's sort of been politically dead in Texas for a long time. Yeah. There are some discussions about something like a red flag law that some of other states have attempted to do. There may be more support among this. Of course, the question is, do Republicans here support that because they control the legislature and the state house? Possibility there. We'll see what happens in January, but in the past few sessions, the thing that the Texas legislature has done have been to expand access to guns and not restrict it.
Zach Despard. Zach, thank you so much for bearing with us and for the connection issues that we all are dealing with in this new world of Zooming or FaceTiming. We appreciate it. And coming up, Twitter has lawyered up what the courts might force Elon Musk to do. And candidate Biden once vowed to treat Saudi Arabia as a, quote, pariah. So why is he headed there to meet with the crown prince, the man accused of being behind the infamous murder of a Washington Post journalist?
Trilogy for COPD.
I noticed what they were saying a while ago, that one individual there at the last. It's not a Republican thing. It's not a Democrat thing. It's a safety issue thing.
Continued support.
It's a safety issue thing.
Is not there to push for peace negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians, but he did reaffirm his support for a two-state solution.
We'll discuss my continued support, even though I know it's not in the near term a two-state solution. That remains, in my view, the best way to ensure the future of equal measure of freedom, prosperity, and democracy for Israelis and Palestinians alike.
After 2 days in Israel and a visit to the occupied West Bank, Biden plans to travel to Saudi Arabia. Joining me now from Jerusalem is NBC News correspondent Carol Lee. So, Carol, how's it going so far? And also, why is he going to Saudi Arabia and meeting with MBS after he called that country a pariah and after he's gotten quite a bit of criticism for going to meet with that head of state?
Well, it's a great question, Katie, and what the White House says is that the president is trying to reset relations with Saudi Arabia. It's a very important strategic ally in the region, and also oil is another reason why he would be going to Saudi Arabia. Those high gas prices is something the president really wants to try to contend with, and Saudi Arabia is a key player when it comes to oil on the world market. Now, first, he's here in Israel, and he arrived here today to a welcome ceremony at the airport. He spoke to the closeness between the U.S. and Israel, saying that relationship and those ties are bone deep. And he also visited Yad Vashem, the Holocaust memorial, where he met with Holocaust survivors who emigrated to America. And he gave an interview to Israeli television, Katie, that aired just recently, where he took a stronger line on Iran when asked about whether he would use military force to keep Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. Take a listen to that.
You, in the past, said you'll do anything, and you say it again, that you'll ensure Iran would not acquire nuclear weapons. Does that also mean, sir, that you would use force against Iran? Is that what that means? If needed?
That was the last resort, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the president also said that he is committed to keeping the IRGC, Iran's Revolutionary Guard, on the foreign terrorism organization list, even if that means, Katie, that he wouldn't get that Iran nuclear deal that his administration has been trying to negotiate. Also, he said that he wouldn't be disappointed, a little 2024 news, if it was a rematch between he and former President Trump. So the president talking a little bit about 2024, but really focused here on this trip. And as you noted at the start of this, he is going to Saudi Arabia after having a series of meetings here in Israel tomorrow and on Friday. And the hot topic there will be oil.
Carol, thank you very much. And Twitter is...
So we're going to put oil and the profits of oil above and beyond justice. That's what I'm hearing right now. And the thing of it is, it's not just about an American journalist. Okay? It's about what went on during 9/11 that even to this day our officials is not addressing properly, even though you can look it up on file for yourself. Various FBI institutions and U.S. Marshals has verified that there was a financial trace that had come from Saudi Arabia towards Saudi Arabia financing various terrorists that was engaged in 9/11 towards supplying their needs while they was over here doing their thing. So whenever we have an American government that is willing to put profit over policy, whenever we have an American government that hires law enforcement agencies that can't protect our own children, friends, I hate to tell you, but we are in trouble. We are in deep, deep trouble, and it's as if everybody and their brother is covering up towards what the Bushes and the Cheneys, going all the way back to the senior Bush. It's like everybody and their brother is trying to cover that up and make that as if that it's not a big deal by seeing approximately 3,000 people get destroyed, in addition to the way that it has toppled our economy. We have taken on lick after lick after lick, and you have to start asking yourself the simple question, not if there's going to be another lick, but when there's going to be another lick, and how bad is the next lick going to be? Is it going to be another school shooting? Is it going to be another 9/11? Is it possibly going to be as big as what happened during Pearl Harbor? Well, if it does, are we going to do anything about it? We ain't done nothing about it yet. Especially whenever you stand there and you watch officers for 77 minutes, about 4 or 5 different agencies stand there and let their children get slain the way that they was being slain, and nobody was willing to take on enough courage to go in there and stop it, or at least attempt to stop it. I would have knocked down the whole freaking side of the school if I had to, by taking my automobile and driving it off in there just to be able to stop that individual that was killing them children. I would have done whatever it took, whatever means necessary, to end that situation to where that individual would no longer be shooting any more innocent children, even at the expense of my own death. And if we're hiring in people that don't have the same incentives as what I just got through telling or saying, then you probably need to evaluate whether or not you ought to hire that person. If there's any hesitancy at all, that they're not willing to lay down their lives for our lives, then you don't need to hire them. My God. You know, you have made openly gestures that the country of Saudi Arabia, looking at it from a human rights standard, is a pariah government. I personally, I wouldn't even give it that much of credibility. The Saudi Arabia government has been known for years of sponsoring various terrorist groups all over the world. The Saudi Arabia government burns the candle at both ends. The Saudi Arabia government is not to be trusted, especially since they have become so high and almighty pertaining to their wealth, all originating around crude oil. I don't know whoever gave them the authority to have OPEC or the authority of OPEC, but whoever did, whatever American politicians that done that, I feel like that they're going to be held accountable in the eyes of God towards ever allowing for us to become that vulnerable. And to think that we know that Saudi Arabia, pertaining to the prince, ordered the death of a Washington journalist and various other FBI and Marshall institutions can prove the money trail leading from Saudi Arabia in taking care or financing various terrorist entities over here in America that plotted and engaged in 9/11. And to think that we had a president, past tensively speaking, Obama, that went over there and bowed, literally bowed to the prince in the intentions of almost kissing the very hand that his ring was on. To think that we have had Donald Trump go over there and do a review with the Saudi prince pertaining to the aura that they brag about this supernatural aura that has a lot of energy in it, that's basically just a demonic Luciferian entity that our president went over there and I guess bragged on that he was a part of towards being able to get a photo op with all that, and now to think that we got a president that's going over there to do what? To do what? Bow? Kiss the prince's hand? Kiss his ring? Go play with his aura? That way he can have another photo op? This is out of hand. We are in trouble. And we don't need to be playing with people that's been playing with us, especially those that act like that they are our friends, but we know in reality that they're not. It goes beyond a travesty. It's treachery, treason, in the name of the safety and prosperity of the American people. And to think that the American people has to sit back and watch this on a day-to-day level and accept it as it being normal is sickening. It is absolutely, frightfully sickening.
Is taking Elon Musk to court. The company officially filed a lawsuit against the billionaire in the Delaware Court of Chancery. That is because Musk backed out of a $44 billion deal to buy Twitter, claiming it withheld data about the number of bots and...
That's enough of that. I don't want to hear nothing about that. Obviously, the man stuck out his neck too far. Now he's wanting to retract from his original agreement. That just shows you right there that he felt like that he was going to bite off more than he could chew for whatever reason. He can say that he got lied to and they misrepresented themselves or whatever, but the fact of the matter is he don't want the deal. He does not want the deal. Elon Musk don't want this deal. That's the reason why he backed out. Thanks again for listening. Good luck to all of us as we end our program. God bless America. God bless America's troops, our troops, and shalom.